Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Bentley's a truther. Also, the V-Team takes a look at Hubbard's dash for the cash. And the special session reminded me a lot of the Olympics.
And here we are at the start of the first event of the afternoon, the second semi-final of the 100 yards for people with no sense of direction. I'll just give you the competitors. Lane 1, Skolomoski of Poland. Lane 2, Zarapatik of France. Lane 3, Grobovich of the United States. Next to him, Drabble of Trinidad. Next to him, Fernandez of Spain. And in the outside lane, Borman of Brazil.
Run, Bentley, run. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics with your host, Bill Brett. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Hello.
Hello.
You know, it's almost like a spectacular failure. I mean, here we are, like the umpteenth special session of the Robert Bentley administration, and now we're gonna carry the lottery bill over. We didn't get anything on the BP thing. I mean, and nothing for Medicaid. Now we're coming back, Susan, because they can't get it done.
They can't get it done. They can't agree. They can't even agree to disagree. I mean, it is just total chaos over there. Has been since they gabbled in. So finally, they've decided. Okay, the Senate said that's enough. We're adjourning until I think it's 2 o'clock on September the 6th. We'll come back and discuss all this. And from my understanding, they still have 3 days in which to try to settle these issues. But I'm not guaranteeing you they'll be settled then.
Well, that poison pill that Connie Rowe threw in, that's an issue. What were you going to say, Beth?
Oh, just that, this is absolutely ridiculous because the Republican Party has a supermajority. They can do whatever they want. And so, the Democrats are kind of over there doing whatever they do these days. But you've got the Republican Party who has the caucus pledge, right? So if the caucus all agrees to vote a certain way, they have to block vote when they get to the floor. And they still can't get it right.
I don't think that caucus is agreeing on a whole lot lately,
Well,
Jack.
I'm not going to lay any of the blame on the Alabama legislature.
You're right.
In this one sense, in this one time only, you get a free pass, guys.
it doesn't last long.
The governor
Time is
screwed
running
up
out.
from the beginning.
He did.
He did not go to the powers that be, and even just regular legislators who may not have a committee chair or whatever, and say, okay, guys, what's going to make you like this bill? What's going to make you, now some are going to say, I'll never vote for a gambling bill, period. I understand that. But he should have gotten buy-in from the people in the House and the Senate. He failed to do it. I don't know if it's arrogance or stupidity. Either one is no excuse.
Well, he sent around a little letter last week and said, oh, well, help me do this, my friend. And I was talking to a couple of senators, and they go, when did I become Bentley's friend? He never even invited me over to the Capitol once. Never invited senators to the Capitol once. Have you ever heard of such thing, Jack?
No, I really haven't.
No.
They're no
we're
friends
talking
in
about Robert
politics.
Bentley, the unpredictable governor.
And his definition of coming to the State House, like most governors will come to the State House, they'll be seen on the Senate floor, they'll be seen on the House floor. No, what did he do? He sat up on the second floor and called them
Beckoned
to him.
them.
Beckoned them to him.
Well, I
The
mean,
king would like to see you now.
you gotta look back at the history. This is the only governor that I know of that's ever pulled these types of shenanigans.
Well, and you can even see it before the session even started. There was Senator McClendon's lottery bill, and then there was the bill that Senator McClendon carried for the governor. And, even the governor had to have his own way to try to go about doing this in the beginning. He couldn't even take Senator McClendon's bill and say, okay, what can we do to try to find some common ground? It was just, we're going to do this my way or we're not going to do it at all. And I don't think he would have signed it if one of the others had gotten to his desk.
Well, and one of the problems Bentley has is nobody trusts him. Nobody believes him.
We don't even know how long he's going to be governor.
No. I mean, he came out this week and he took offense at a story we wrote where people at the State House were saying he was trying to sign a compact with the Porch Creek Indians. And then Bobby Singleton, Senator Singleton, went on the record and said, absolutely, I think that's what he's trying to do. He had held 2 press conferences, Jack, to say that we were wrong.
Well,
And sent a letter.
Whatever it takes.
I mean, who was the last guy who did that?
He wants everybody to kiss his ring, but you don't know where that finger's been. That's
And the thing is that, you know, he was even caught on the Alan Farley tape saying he wanted to compact with the PCI.
And didn't he send Senator Singleton to go try and negotiate the compact?
Yeah, he was his emissary to the end.
And he's trying to say that he doesn't know anything about it. This is baloney.
Well, you know, I wrote an opinion piece and called him the truther because he's
a truthful
truthing.
man.
He's truthing. Now, I know there's certain generational folks that don't understand that, but a truther's got a truth. And Bentley has told so many truths. I mean, he was truthful with his wife. He was truthful with the state about his mistress. He was truthful with... Wait a minute, Jack. He wasn't, was he?
No, you know,
Well,
Bill, I'm so confused what the truth is anymore.
He even asked Collier Spencer not to tell the truth.
And
Collier
Spencer
Spencer?
Collier, too, both of them.
Collier, comma, Spencer.
Well, I tell you, if anybody believes there's anything about this guy but liar, liar, pants on fire, they're misled. You know, like Beth, you brought up, he was over there, and Susan said he was down there getting people and promising Democrats this and promising Democrats that. And then Jack, you know, he wants them to do something for him, and he's promising them something. If Robert Bentley promised you something today,
I wouldn't take it to the bank. I'll just
No.
put it that way.
No.
But what's this with Connie Rowe trying to put an amendment on the lottery bill that bingo may only be played on paper ballots?
that the
exactly
lottery
what it
can
was.
only be played on paper ballots, some scratch-offs, and that takes out the growth industry, doesn't it, Beth?
It does. It limits us pretty much to, you know, the Powerball to scratch-offs. I'm good at scratch-offs personally. It's a talent of mine. But what it does is it shows that anybody who would profit from electronic bingo, we know who that is, she's trying to mess them up with this.
Well,
Well,
somebody's getting to her. I mean,
Yeah.
she doesn't have sense enough to know down here.
Now, there were several
about
people
Milton
that came
and-
with this same type of amendment, too. So I'll have to give her that.
Well, I tell you what, you know,
means they
the
got
Porch
all of
Creek Indians, bless their heart, I've got some friends down there, but they really, as Bobby Singleton said, Robbie McGee wants it all. I think they need a new negotiator over there besides Robbie McGee, or especially those Kenny folks. But they were everywhere. They were just in everybody's law office all the time, walking around like they owned the joint. And but I think they're planning on buying it. You know, I think that's it.
Yeah.
John Merrill, they hung the noose around Merrill's neck, saying that he could change the deadline for the lottery to go on the ballot. He didn't buy.
No, he first said it had to be passed out by Wednesday night at midnight. Legislature, some of them took issue with him, said, no, we really got till Friday at midnight. Merrill seeks an AG's opinion. AG shoots back and says, it's in your hands. Merrill then says to the legislature, no, if y'all want it on the November 8th ballot, change the law.
Because we have to print, the ballots have to be printed by the 31st,
Yeah,
right?
they're
The end of the month.
Monday.
Yeah.
And they are being printed Monday.
Right, because they've got to be able to get overseas for people who are active military, wherever else voting. And, you know, I thought it was funny when he sent it over to the Attorney General and said, you know, let us know about this. I was like, oh, this is going to be good. We're going to have Luther Strange rule on a gambling decision. This will be
I
fun.
thought the same thing.
This will be fun.
I thought he'll just let it lay on his desk. But no, hot potato less than 12 hours, he lobbed it right
Sent
back
right
at
back.
him.
Well, the Jefferson County delegation will be excited that it's not on the November 8th ballot.
That's
know
right,
they're
because
having
they
a
don't
party.
have to worry about all those Democrats coming out
Let
to
me
vote.
assure them the Democrats will be coming out to vote in Jefferson County. I'll make sure of it myself.
If Donald Trump doesn't bring out the Democrats, I don't know what will.
Oh, yes.
You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back. You want to make Alabama great again? or-
Yeah, it'll take a while, I think.
Why don't we start with cheese? We can start grading the cheese.
I'm telling you, you can either hold your nose and vote for Trump or hold your wallet and vote for Hillary.
Wow.
I'm Dario Melton. When I think about Selma, I think about home. This is the neighborhood that I grew up in. Like so many other kids, this is where my hopes and dreams came alive. I believe that we can do big, important things right here in Selma. I believe we can work together to grow Selma from our roots out, building a city we can all be proud to call home, with safe streets, quality schools, and 21st century jobs. I'm Dario Melton, and I'm running for mayor. Let's put Selma first.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. There has been so much going on the last couple of weeks. One of the most shocking things, and Claire, these are people you know very well, Senator Dick Brubaker and Senator Paul Busman resigned from the Senate Republican caucus. They had said they just had enough. What are you hearing?
Well, I know everybody says only you'll know when enough is enough, and I think this has been boiling for over the last 2 to 3 sessions, and they are both great statesmen, and they want to stand up and do what's right for their citizens of their district, and they don't always see eye to eye with the leadership, and they've been pushed back, and so they know they'll be more powerful out.
Well, Jack, what do you think about that?
Well, I think both Dick Brubaker and Paul Busman are very conscientious guys.
Right.
They have very strong convictions about things.
Right.
A lot of things have not gone their way. I know, for example, that Dick is very frustrated because he can never get Common Core to come up for a vote in the legislature, and that's because the leadership was and is against any
Maybe he
change.
should ask Bob Riley about that.
Yeah,
Well, we know that. You can trace a lot of stuff back to him.
Susan, these are guys that we consider real conservatives. They've towed the party line, and they can't tow it anymore.
Well, Brubaker said earlier this week that, they had really they pulled out all the tricks for this lottery bill the leadership had, when they hadn't pulled all the tricks out for things that they felt that were important, like Common Core, pro-life legislation, that sort of thing. That to pull out those stops for the lottery itself, to them, didn't bode well with what their beliefs are and their way. I think he, in fact, said that the caucus is a lot different than it was when it started in 2010. Sure. As the members now, and its direction's just
changed. And don't
changed.
forget, Busman was kicked off of his chairmanship.
Yeah,
He
that's
was.
right.
So the whole, it's egregious. No
Because
question
he
about it,
didn't-
because he didn't march to the tune
he
of
didn't.
something that the
Exactly,
leadership wanted.
Exactly. And that's the thing with Dick. He's going to lose that chairmanship, I'm sure, over education, but I don't think he cares at this point.
But they all have strong convictions, and these are, a particular Common Core is something they've been pushing on the back burner for 3 years now, because they're being controlled by the former
BCA
governor and
and-
BCA.
And now, don't think that Dick Brubaker's just going back to his office.
No.
He's buzzing those halls every time you're down there. He's
Well,
in
and
out
don't
of
think
those
that
halls.
Paul Busman's just going to go back and sit on
No.
rest on his
No,
laurels
no.
either. They've picked on 2 strong, firm, active believers in their core.
Yeah, these
and
guys
their
are
core convictions.
these are no shrinking violets.
Neither
That's
one of them
right.
need
Sure.
the job,
That's
Yeah,
right.
they don't
That's a
need
very valid point. Both of them they're not here to get rich. They
No.
don't need the
That's
job.
right. They
okay?
came here rich.
Right.
Well, they came here for the right reasons,
did,
not
they
to
did.
feather their nest.
Which you can't say about a lot of those folks.
I like both those guys. I respect their principle. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. This week, we were able to publish a letter from our friend and yours, the guy who loves the state more than he loves anything other than his own pocketbook. Mike Hubbard
I
sent.
wouldn't say that.
Mike Hubbard, it was a joke. Mike Hubbard sent out a letter this week, may I say, convicted felon Mike Hubbard sent out a letter saying that this whole thing against him was trumped up, it was not real, he's going to get it struck down.
Rogue prosecution, right?
Prosecution. By the way, I need some money probably. Susan, he sent it to business leaders throughout the state.
He did.
He's dialing for dollars.
He's
sounds like.
unconscionable. I mean, he's narcissistic, first of all, and so he doesn't believe he's done anything wrong.
Yeah.
Well, and he's sending out, this is dialing for dollars. It's obviously dialing for dollars. But he says in there that it clearly lays out multiple reasons a new trial should be held, as though he's trying to gin them up to talk to the judge and get the judge to change his mind.
I think when he looks in the mirror, he sees another person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A guy in a coat and tie when he really ought to be looking at stripes.
And I seriously think he thinks he still wields the same power to raise money, to influence people that he once did, and it's just not there anymore.
Well, I mean, you're gone from the mantle and the throne. They don't give a darn. You're not the Speaker of the House anymore.
That's right.
They have nothing to buy you about.
We hear he got $50,000 recently from an unknown source to pay Bill Baxley. He was
Maybe
also,
the color of a state bird or something?
Yeah, he was also spotted at the Porch Creek facility with some unknown folks. So he's getting around. This is the one reason Susan, Jack, and and
Claire.
all of us have said he should be behind bars because he's out there making deals, making mischief.
Well, he's been cozy with the Indians the whole time. There's been a lot that's gone on that probably shouldn't have. And
Now
so
remember, his hearing is September the 2nd, so that's this coming Friday.
Well, I wish that Judge Walker had incarcerated him until his criminal appeals hearing came up.
Yeah.
That would have helped stem some of
well,
it.
maybe he's out. All these things he's out there doing, that may ultimately be a noose around his neck. So may not be a bad
Well,
thing.
we know he's meeting with BCA. We know he's met with Canary. We know he's met with Riley. We know he's met now with someone at the Porch Creek, maybe not one of the tribe, but someone down there. And he's soliciting money, and he's still on the radio, yucking it up every Saturday, acting like he's the state's DJ.
Yeah, and might I add, for the viewers, it is against the FEC rules and regulations if you're a felony to own a radio station. I'm not sure.
Oh, even the license to have
right,
one.
and he has all that. So I would think that somebody better be talking to some federal lawyers, the federal government, lawyers, and surely the Attorney General's office and the U.S. Attorney knows about that. The man should not be able to have this license any longer.
Well, it's just...
Or be on the air.
It's just absolutely unconscionable that he
Egregious
gets to do
is what it is.
Gets to do what he did.
It's outrageous.
I know, Jack, we had a letter in the Alabama Political Reporter this week, open letter from Tim James, a fine man and a statesman,
Right.
very well respected. He took issue with Alan Farley tape recording the governor and then releasing that tape to Yellowhammer News. You took issue with it too, didn't you?
I didn't take issue with Tim James. I thought he did the right thing.
Right.
I took issue with Alan Farley taping, unbeknownst to Governor Bentley, a phone conversation that he had with the governor. Now, Diane Bentley also taped her husband, but I think that was for totally different reasons.
Right.
That was for self-preservation. Farley, I think, just did the wrong thing, and especially when, is he really, how disingenuous is it to pray at the end of a phone conversation that you've taped and you're going to release to the public to embarrass the governor?
Well,
I
and
thought
the
that was way over the top,
He should
and
have
Tim James was right.
He should have at least turned the recorder off there.
Well, taping someone without their knowledge, unless there's a real criminal thing involved,
That
that's
tells-
really sleazy.
Well, that tells you something. I'm sadly to say that tells you something about his core values. Plus, he was doing it for his own self-interest because he wanted a position.
Oh, yeah, he wanted to
And
be
you know
prison
what?
commissioner. We all know that.
Right, and I'll just say my hat's off to Tim James. He's a great man, and you know what? I'm glad that he wrote this and let y'all publish it because the average person out there needs to see really what's going on.
Well, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis. Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, Medicaid has been a constant crisis for years now. It seems to be getting worse, but I'm afraid that people have not delved down far enough into the numbers, the public and even lawmakers, to understand that Medicaid in Alabama is bare bones, and it also is really all about children, mothers, the disabled and elderly, with the children and pregnant women being the
Number one.
largest class of people that it covers.
It is. That's the largest class. We cover over 50% of the births with Medicaid in Alabama every year. And a startling statistic that has just become available recently is that Alabama has a 13% infant mortality rate. That is a very high, that's unacceptable.
That's higher than a third world country.
It is. Only 5 years ago, it was at 8, but it
Right.
has jumped that much in just
4%.
5 years.
Well,
And
some
there's
people say
something
it's
wrong.
because we've cut out certain medicines that are made available after to women, prenatal care, and all that.
There was one in specific back about 5 years ago. I can't exactly remember which drug
But-
it was, but they knew when they were passing that if they passed this for Medicaid not to cover this drug, that babies would die, and they did.
Well, Jack, you got to look at it. I mean, hey, what are the children are poor through no fault of their own, and many of their mothers work at Walmart and places like that who don't pay them.
But they don't have benefits.
They don't have any benefits.
They're
Right.
part-time.
Yeah.
And like she said, 50% of us goes to pregnant women and then children, because the average person out there thinks that most of Medicaid goes to the elderly.
Yeah, or
and that is
disabled.
incorrect. And then it goes to disabled.
We
And there's
really-
a very high percentage of children on Medicaid across the state, and people would be astounded.
And even if they're not, their primary is not Medicaid, a lot of times their secondary insurance is Medicaid, even if the parents have primary insurance.
Well, Jack, you were going to say
yeah,
something.
you know, government really has a responsibility, in my opinion, to take care of people medically who can't help themselves and through no fault of their
Right,
own, and that
right.
that applies to the class of people we're talking about.
Right. I mean, no one wants to be disabled. No one wants to get old. And children, they're
innocent.
They're
They're
innocent.
absolutely.
They're
And
absolutely
the only
innocent.
way a male gets covered under this at all is if they are disabled. You don't have somebody sitting over in the projects drawing their welfare check on Medicaid. That person doesn't
Well,
exist.
and look, you just hit a nerve. I mean, you know, a lot of the complaint about Medicaid is racist.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. And look, most of these people can't help. The real problem in Alabama is poverty, poverty, poverty. Our people are poor, and so they have to have Medicaid. They have to have these services. We just have to fix it somehow.
And if we're doing a good job, which we're not, of educating the next generation, they have to have medical care while they're being educated. So you got two of those.
Well, they have to learn that,
Need
but
to
I do
work in there
believe,
together.
though, I know some people that are on, quote, disability,
Oh, yeah.
that have no business
Right.
being on disability, and they really ought to crack down on that.
They
But
have.
as far as the children and the elderly and the legitimately poor people who are sick, we need to take care of
But
them.
Right.
as you mentioned earlier, this pot has been boiling for over 25 years, and
Right.
everybody keeps putting a Band-Aid on it, and no one has really ever taken the bull by the horns and fixed this.
And
Somebody's
children-
got
And that's
to do that.
Democrats and
And
Republicans.
Republicans. It's both.
Republicans. And now we're to the point where children are dying. Okay, if we're working so hard to keep them in the womb, and the pro-life movement, do something for them when they come out of
Well,
the
you're either
womb.
pro-life for every life, or you're no pro-life.
I agree.
Okay, I think we're
Absolutely.
getting too far into the weeds. We might should move on to the next thing.
That's true.
I'm still trying to figure out how you,
You
put
know
a
how I can get about
Band-Aid on
that,
a
Claire?
boiling pot, but
I don't know, but you know, if anybody can do it, Claire can.
absolutely.
She can put the tea leaves
Snake
on the
over
wall.
the bridge
Yeah,
and the water under
I saw some alligators over the bridge.
Listen, Claire's right. Let's move on. Speaker Mac McCutcheon, I have heard nothing but good words about him, even from people, Claire, who opposed him to be Speaker. I had several gentlemen and a female tell me, man, he's doing a great job. He's following the rules.
Well, I think it is just so refreshing to everybody up there just these last week and a half, last 2 weeks. You know, there's fun, there's livelihood, people are having a good time, they're getting along, and things are moving at a slow pace, but that's not a bad thing for state government. There's no ramrodding or anything like that, but he's a good, fair, honest man, and I think
I
he'll do
feel
a great
sorry
job.
for him for his first session to be a special when you're considering the lottery where nobody agrees on anything.
Right. But no, he's kept order, and some people found fault with him over this vote that happened, but that was procedural, right?
It was
Susan?
procedural. It wasn't anything that he did incorrectly. Alan Harper did not file the bill for it to
For the
show up in
lottery.
for the lottery and to show up in committee.
He didn't post it the 24 hours.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
right.
get to, Claire. The 24 hours before it was supposed to take place. And so when they got it to the floor, a lot of times when Mike Hubbard was there, he would just, have them vote to override that rule and then voice vote. So he was in control and they just go to committee. Well, Mac McCutcheon didn't let that happen.
Yeah.
He said, this is a rule. We're going to abide by the rule. And so if you guys want to vote on it, we're not going to voice vote. You're going to go to your machines. And we're going to vote this the right way.
I gotta
and they
tell
couldn't
you,
get it out of there.
But my point about what I was saying to you about that was the speaker can't control the fact that the chairman of his committee didn't do his job.
Right.
Okay?
But when it came up on the floor, Mac McCutcheon
Right.
said, oh, no, we're going to go by the rules here. We're going to do it the right
Well,
way.
and Alan Harper has done a good job, but after that, we hear, but he was Bentley's man, and he was probably operating the same way Bentley operates, which is by the, by the seat of his
Seat of his
pants.
pants, yeah.
Wow, or seat of her pants, somebody's pants.
All right, boys, settle down.
Okay, we want to get on to the
Maybe we
next.
should move on to the next.
Yeah,
Yes,
to the
let's
next
go.
though.
Ripping right through them today, baby.
Nobody saw Milton McGregor down at the State House, and nobody saw any of his lobbyists, which was unusual. It was brought up several times. But he did throw a bomb in there, Jack. He said he's opening in September, and it looks like he means it this
Well,
time.
good for him. He needs to open. And it's not like making counties flush with money. I think he provides jobs and a living wage for folks who live and work over there. I think it's great. I think people, it's kind of like, well, I don't want to say that, but it's if there's not a market for it, it's going to fail. But guess what? There's a market for it.
Well, interesting enough, you say that. I was riding, taking kids to school this week, and I heard they've got radio ads out
they
about
do?
it. Yeah, so
Wow.
I've heard the radio
Wow.
ad saying they're opening on the 13th. He and the mayor and have a big shindig on the 13th.
Yeah.
Of course, they've got a new mayor over
Yeah,
there.
they do.
But the DA and the sheriff have certified the machines as being the ones that are legal in the state of Alabama. Recertified them once again. I
Well,
believe these may be new machines. They're not the old machines.
This all's going to come down to what Luther Strange does, if the Supreme Court orders them to be raided. I mean, this is all absolutely, we got about 20 seconds, but it may set up a constitutional crisis, Jack.
Yeah, and Luther sent a letter to all the DAs last January, I believe, saying this is not going to be a matter that we're going to mess with anymore. You local DAs, if you have gambling, you want to crack down, it's up to you.
Okay,
All right.
well, I think everybody, all the viewers better be looking to see what happens on September 13th.
Well, it's going to be interesting. We're going to leave it right there. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.